Now, folks, I don't know about you. When I see a snake, I run, or at least I walk. I'm out of the way. I don't want to know about it. Now, I know there's experts when it comes to the world of snakes, and fortunately enough, we're going to have an expert here soon on Sunday at the Grassy Club, and next Tuesday or Wednesday, or even you can find it online about some instructions and how to deal with snakes. And I'm going to invite the expert that is on the other side of the Zoom link is Ian Norton. Ian, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Yeah, now give us a little bit of a background because for those who don't know you, that you left school and then you said, "I'm going to focus on snakes," or am I wrong?
You're pretty right. I've had 64 years of working with snakes. I think the first one I ever had to play with was a dead one I bought for 5 shillings from a kid at school. So, and father said to me when I got home with the snake, get rid of the bloody thing, because if you don't, I'll kill it and I'll give you a strapping within an inch of your life. So I took it downstairs and I actually scun it and pegged the skin up. That was my first experience with snakes. But since then, the fascination has never left me. And it's been something that I've been able to take into my professional life with 29 years at the museum in Launceston. And we've worked with snakes and started different organisations to handle call outs and training and awareness programs, which is part of the reason for the King Island trip. We really want to make people aware that you don't necessarily have to be afraid of them, but you certainly need to give them a great deal of respect. And given the changes that we've seen over the last 4 to 5 years, the imperative is that we need to have people more knowledgeable about the subject and how to maybe it's not so much the danger of dying from a snake bite. These days, the treatment protocols are really, really good and swift and reliable, but the effects of not applying your first aid and getting help in the shortest possible time can have lifelong ramifications.
What is your first aid?
The first aid is pressure immobilization. So, in other words, you put a bandage on the bitten limb. It gets a little bit harder and a bit more difficult if you get a bite on the trunk or somewhere around the head. Although rare, there's records that show that that has happened. But mostly, if you put your first aid in place in under 2 minutes, you can offset a whole lot of really bad side effects that can come from snakebite. And that's part of the message that we want to impart on King Island. It's not just about the animals themselves, but it's how to make yourself safe and how to protect yourself and those you love. You know, I remember a mother coming past one day, we were doing a snake awareness program, and she said, "Oh, I know all this stuff." And I said, "So you know what to do if your little granddaughter got bitten by a snake?" "Oh, perhaps you better tell me." And so we had a conversation. Those are the sort of things. Don't take it for granted that you know all and you know what to do. Because one of the things that really sticks in my mind is over the last 4 years, we've seen a major increase in the systemic responses. In other words, the things that snakes can do to you that take it from a 2 or 3 day hospital event to 5 weeks in hospital, life support, dialysis, and bleeding from other orifices in your body. It's extremely unpleasant. And when did a bit of research on it, discovered that over the time period from the 1950s to now, there's been an increase in the toxicity noted in both tigers and brown snakes. Now, we don't have to worry too much about the brown snakes, but the tigers, that's a whole different story.
What occurred then? Do you think
We
how did
don't
they?
know. That's the science hasn't caught up with the findings yet. What they did in the 1950s was what's called an LD50, where they grade the snake's toxicity, and tigers come up to be the fourth most venomous snake on the planet. Okay, now browns and taipans are ahead of the game there, but they're not concerned as far as snakebite in this state's concerned. But when they did the tests about 2 years ago they found the increase, and it was significant. And that explains why we see people that have been bitten by snakes bleeding from around their teeth. Your gum bleeds. So, we have photos of victims in our discussion and public awareness programs to show you just what can happen and how severe the effects can be and how to avoid them. And one of the avoidance tactics is to actually have your first aid uh, applied, and the first symptom now, so we don't wait for pathology, the first symptom of snake bite indicates the treatment to proceed. So that means you start vomiting and you've got a headache or pain, whatever, as a result of the bite, then they act immediately. They want to be able to deliver antivenom in under 3 hours to avoid all those really bad side effects and requiring dialysis and induced comas and all that sort of stuff. So that's why it's important. We're not worried about people living with, and you don't hear too many people getting bitten. But by gee, if you're the person that gets bitten or you see one of your kids, it suddenly becomes very, very important to you.
Now, I'll give you an example here, and when we talk about King Island in a situation that could occur, and then it comes down to a time frame. We are isolated. There's areas on this island that you don't see anybody. You could walk in a bit of bush or around forestry or whatever. We
Yep.
have areas where your mobile phone doesn't work. Now
Yep.
I have a situation. I'm in the forest. I get bitten by a snake. Am I still safe enough for an X amount of time to say I jump in the car and drive to the hospital as fast as I can, or
Well, you've raised a couple of points there. Firstly, if you're bitten by a snake, you don't drive. In fact, you cease all movement. Now, the venom travels through your body via the lymphatic system, so it doesn't go directly into your bloodstream. And lymph fluid is moved by movement, not by your heart. So it's not pumped. It's a one-way process, passes through your lymph nodes, and of course, all the T cells and antigen protecting things come into play to treat the amount of venom that's going through. But of course, it's overwhelmed the system. So it's a fairly slow transmission. And if you don't move, then the lymph sort of stays in situ. So that lymph fluid is what we're trying to stop. So when you put the bandage on, it stops the travel of the venom getting into the trunk or into your general circulatory system where it will find its way. And so you have time. Now, if your bandages are really put on good and professionally and effectively, then you're not going to have any symptoms until you get to the hospital. The hospitals then can then have everything set up, the lines in place, put you on observation. So they just probably, you've just got a cannula in your arm, you're waiting, 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 and then suddenly you start to vomit or you get a headache or, oh, gee, I don't feel too good. That's the indicator. And that's got to be done in under 3 hours now for really effective treatment. Now, if you go the other way and you haven't got your bandages, which we had a case of recently, and the lady in question was bitten while fishing off the rocks. She went fishing at the Waterhouse here on the Tasmanian mainland and stepped on a tiger snake that bit her twice on the leg. Now, by the time she got herself together and tried to get to a car where she had bandages, so she didn't have them on her, they were in the glove box. By the time she got halfway, she collapsed. Her son was smart enough to call Triple O. The ambulance came from Bridport, immediately called a helicopter, which came from Victoria, and they gave her her first dose of antivenom on the beach. That's how serious it was. There was a paramedic on the helicopter flight that serviced her, and the determination was because she was unconscious and fighting them. She doesn't remember any of this, by the way. Doesn't remember a single thing till she woke up in hospital. But she fought. But the indicator showed that there was a cognitive disruption. So they flew her straight to Hobart. She was put in an induced coma for 3 days, not expected to live. But she made through. She features in this presentation that we're doing. She won't be there in person, but she's given permission for us to use photographs and her personal talk of the event. So that to me indicates that we've come a long way in how we treat snakebite now to what we did in the early days. You know, when I got bitten in 91, 3 days in hospital, and I was back on Chapel Island working with snakes. This lady had 5 weeks, 5 weeks. And even now, she's not 100%, but certainly making good progress.
Now, is there, explain, different snakes, different symptoms when it comes to bites?
Yes. Well, generally, here's the good news. There is some good news. Copperhead snakes have never been a cause for a fatality, okay, for starters. And it's not because they're not venomous, because they are. And you can have anti-venom as a result of a bite from one. However, put that aside, the bite mechanism is pretty abysmal. So mostly you get a local symptom from it, unless they can get a good hold and bite you severely. They're reluctant to bite. They're also cannibals, so they eat other snakes. Now, here's the other funny fact. On King Island, the tiger snake is also a cannibal, but on the Tasmanian mainland, it's not. So the cannibalistic tendencies of copperheads here in Tasmania suppresses tiger populations by virtue of predation. So they'll not only eat their own, but they'll eat other snakes, lizards, and the like. And they're browsing all the time. So if you've got a lot of copperheads around, you usually find the numbers of tigers are decreased.
Now, is you have a bit of experience also on King Island, actually on a smaller bit of King Island, Christmas Island,
Yes,
because I
many,
believe
many
there's
years.
a lot of snakes on Christmas Island, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a bit like Chapel Island. But one of the difference we found between the two islands was that the King Island snakes were fierce. You know, the laid back style of Chapel Island, the snakes don't have any predators and they're very docile animals. King Island, not so. And I had some close shaves on King Island. This was way back in my museum days. And it was, in fact, the snake that put me in hospital was a King Island tiger snake.
Well, it shows you that we're known to be fairly fierce and hey, strong people here on this island. So even the snakes, Ian, they followed us. That
Well, that's the cruel part about it because when I was bitten, it was only a scratch on my thumb, just a scratch. Now, the normal dose in those times was two ampules of antivenom. So you're talking 6,000 units of tiger snake monovalent antivenom. It took 3 ampules to bring me out of the twilight zone from a scratch on my thumb. So I guesstimate that the amount of venom would have probably covered the head of a pin, and that was enough to put me in hospital and in a unconscious state for many hours.
well, there you go. That now I've often seen in videos is like with snake handlers where they sort of hold them up by the tail. And the snake doesn't seem to do anything. That is that a way of when you grab a snake by the tail?
Look, unfortunately, a lot of these things that you see with people handling snakes, the truth of the matter is snakes become very docile after a short time of handling. In fact, 3 hours of snakes handling in a snake pit gives us a lot of confidence that we're fairly safe in there with that animal. So when they're dealing with snakes holding them by the tail, some of those snakes have been handled quite a bit, so they're not too bad. But you pick up a fresh wild snake, it's going to want to get you. It'll climb up its own body. It'll lunge at you. And on King Island, when I was on the King Island trip on Christmas Island especially, I remember trying to walk out of bushes while holding a tiger snake by the tail. It struck at me as I'm holding it above my head. It struck twice and caught me twice at chest height on my shirt. It grabbed my shirt twice. Now, if it had got under skin, I would have been a whole mess of trouble because that's a body bite. That's a lot different to, say, being bitten on the arm or the leg.
So, do you think that I have used the right methods where I say when I see a snake, I just move away slowly and go? Is that the way to go?
I guess we personalize it. We sort of think of snakes thinking a bit like we do. Snakes don't see us as anything other than the fact that we're moving, therefore something to be cautious about. So at a distance, a snake's focal length is about 2 meters. Okay, that's what he can focus, but he's very good at movement detection. So you're swatting flies and moving towards him. Usually they know you're coming. They see you, and in most cases, get out of your road. On national parks, they don't. They tend to stick to the paths because that's what everyone else walks, and it's a nice clear space where they can sunbake. So they don't use human rationale. Oh, this is a human and they kill snakes. All they know is this is a something big that's moving and that it frightens them. So when you stand perfectly still, you confuse the snake. You're an object to it. There's something that moved in the distance. When you get up close and personal within eye focal length, then they can see that it's some sort of creature that could be a concern to them, so they'll posture and they'll flatten their heads. Now, they don't attack you. That's the thing that and people say, oh, yes, but they attacked me. As this snake chased me and I did this and I did that. Snakes know where their hidey hole is or where their escape route is. If you're between it and its escape route, it's going there regardless of you being in the way. But if you stand perfectly still, and I've done this countless times over all the years of my snake management programs. They won't just come up and bite you on the leg. They'll crawl over your feet, between your legs, whatever, and you can virtually see the posturing diminish as you stand still. So standing still and not moving diffuses and removes most of the threat.
So when it comes to human beings, then it's an element of self-defense, not attack.
It's fear driving the bite. If they fear you, that's the only instinctive response that they know what to do is to bite. And they don't, they don't think, oh, look, I'm going to kill this person. That's not in their thinking. They're not that intelligent. They've got a brain the size of a pea, but they use it to good effect to stay alive.
Now you're coming to King Island here on Sunday in Grassy, and then next
Right.
week at the study hub. What can I learn from you if I join in these sessions?
We're going to do, I think the first one's arranged for Saturday night, and we'd like as many people to turn up as possible for a general snake awareness program. It won't last all that long, but the main emphasis on safety and first aid. We're not going to try and frighten people into thinking that the only good snake's a dead snake. We're going to show you that you don't need to be afraid, but you need to be mindful of the possibilities of snake encounters. Now, one of the big issues, of course, we have is snakes that get in houses, inside cars, and the fact that people don't always carry first aid on them. So if you're going for a picnic, fishing trip, or something, either put them in your backpack on a little bum bag on your belt or something, but have them where you can access them in short time. So that's the thing that we'll be concentrating on is making your homes, keeping your animals safe. We have a huge number of dogs killed every year, mostly in the south of the state, from tiger snake bites. And it's become a real issue. And everyone would like to keep their pets safe. So that's the sort of stuff we'll be dealing with. Then on, I think Monday and Tuesday, we're going to do certification. That means if anyone wants to work with snakes or wants accreditation to be able to either keep work with or have an interest in maybe become a call out operative on the island to relocate snakes to turn up in people's houses, you need to have training and accreditation to be able to do that. So we'll be running a day courses and I believe the course cost us $295 for the accreditation course. So you do that, and it's a one-off cost. It covers insurance and a whole range of things, books and the like, and that equips you then to work with snakes. Now, the farmer on the property doesn't need to have that, but maybe someone like Department of Parks and Recreation and councils, first aiders, people of interest, scientists, biosecurity people, all those sort of people, it's a benefit to them to have that accreditation because they have to have it as part of their workplace safety standards and it's required by the wildlife authorities.
Well, Ian Norton, thanks for all this information. That's very interesting, and we'll see you soon on King Island.
Yeah, we look forward to. I have three people in our team, a trainer, an assessor, and a physical handling expert. And we hope to meet as many people as we can and enlighten people.